Welcome, 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 welcome. What is up, beautiful people? My name is Aja McNair, and I am just so excited that you are here today. It has been a minute since we've done a live, so I'm just excited to roll up my sleeves and get into it with you guys. You are here for a treat as we are going to talk about, is your child actually ready to read? 5 signs that you absolutely positively should not ignore. And so let's get into it. Now, before I dive into the meat and we begin to eat this content, let me see who's in the building right now. Down below in the chat box, just say hello. Let us know where you are tuning in from. Amen. All right. I want y'all to say hello. I'm a very interactive person if you're new here. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Let me just tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Aja McNair. Once again, I am an educational consultant. I have been an administrator, meaning that I was over all things teaching and learning for a long time. I have over 15 years in early childhood, specifically in Title I school. So for those that don't know what a Title I school is, that's just simply a school that has a lot of children receiving free and reduced lunch. Okay. Typically in these kind of environments, you have struggling readers. And so that's really where I began to perfect my art of teaching reading. I also have my reading endorsement, and I'm certified in training and diagnosing reading and mathematical behaviors. All right, so let me just tell you a little bit about what I do, just in case you are new. I help women inspire and motivate children to master the essential skills they need for success in literacy. So I'm all about mastering essential skills. I'm here to help you raise confident readers. So because my mission is kind of two-folded, I help both the woman and the child go from being overwhelmed, unsure, and feeling how to teach reading and frustrated by the lack of progress. Okay, so that's typically where I see most of my clients starting from, and then through one-on-one or group coaching services, they end up going to the other end of that, which is feeling confident, equipped, and supported with clear strategies. Now, this is just the transformation that the woman goes through, but the child goes through a transformation as well. As for children, they go from feeling unmotivated, struggling, and falling behind in literacy to feeling motivated, engaged, and mastering essential literacy skills. So if you know that you are at the beginning of that journey, you're like, hey, I need this transformation, just comment down below in the chat box, transformation. Even if you're watching the replay, look, I watch these comments. Transformation. So I want to ask you a question. And my question is this: have you ever felt unsure about when to start teaching your child to read? Have you ever felt unsure about when to teach your child how to read? I want you to think about that. See, most of us, and I get this question a lot. People are like, "Well, when is it time to start working with you?" Like, and it's a thin line. So you're left in this gray area of when do I actually start doing these? When do I actually start implementing these kind of strategies? And if you have ever wondered this question, like when do I start? Let me let you know you're not alone. You're amongst thousands of other women out there that are like, I don't know when to start teaching how to read. When do I start teaching things like letters and sounds? And when do I actually put the pencil in my child's hand? Well, today I am actually going to give you 5 signs that will show whether your child is truly ready to read, and what do you do if they're not ready to read. Okay, so let's get into it. And if you have not yet, let me just go ahead and say, hit the thumbs up button. You just got to be accustomed to hitting the thumbs up button while you come in. All right, so let's talk about these 2 major things: too soon and too late. Oftentimes, when we are in this gray area and we don't know when to actually start teaching reading, you see a lot of women, right, begin to roll out the strategies a little too soon. So this is where a child is not ready. When you begin to roll a lot of these skills out too soon, what you end up having is a lot of guessing. The child gets absolutely frustrated. You see things like guessing, short attention span, they don't want to do it. And it's not good for either one of y'all, right? Like, so the child kind of like shuts down because they're not ready to learn these kind of skills. And so automatically they shut down. Then you have children, if you wait too late to teach them how to read, same kind of consequence, but they're shutting down not because they're not ready for those skills, but because, hey, now they feel behind. And now you're frustrated because they're behind the mark. And so the same kind of frustration that you see with the child too soon, you also see it with the child in too late. So it makes a very clear like path of when you actually should teach a child how to read. So too soon and too late both lead to frustration during reading time, a lack of focus or interest, and inconsistent results or no progress at all. Okay. So both of these, whether it's too early or too late, you're going to have the same kind of results. So just think of reading like building a building. So as you know, one of the first things we do in building a building is we start off with the what? The foundation, right? You have to make sure that the foundation is stable. You have to make sure that you have, the cement. I've never seen, not once in my whole life, somebody start building a building on the third level, like ever. Well, teaching reading is like the exact same. You have to start at what's called the foundation. And so that's what we're going to begin to talk about a little bit today is those foundational skills that they need in order to know that they're ready to read and that they're ready to go a step further. Okay. So imagine everything I'm teaching you today is a part of the foundation. And then all of those reading skills, that's going to be a part of the building. Things like letter names and letter sounds and how to write a letter. All of those things are the actual building. All right, so let's get into tip number one. I'm going to get right into it. We're not going to be on too long, but if you do have a question, please comment down below in the chat box. Let me know if I go too fast. I like to get to the meet and greet. Some people just get on here and they waste your time. They just keep talking. That's not me. So we're gonna get into the content. All right. So 5 signs that your child is actually ready to read. Um. Uh-oh. Oh, number 1, they understand what's called pre-reading behaviors. And I actually have an entire video on this, just kind of breaking down what pre-reading behaviors are. And in this video, I'm going to give you guys like a few more. Also, number 2, if they show interest in books and words. 3, if they can follow simple directions and pay attention. 4, if they have a basic fine motor control, doesn't have to be too elaborate. And then 5, if they can identify and play with beginning sounds and letters. So let's dive into each one of these, starting off with if they understand pre-reading behaviors. So go ahead and comment down below in the chat box. I told you I'm interactive. When you hear pre-reading behaviors, whether you watch my prior video or not, what do you think a child should know before they begin to read? This is a behavior that you expect to see in your child. Y'all are like, I don't know. That's why I'm here with you. All right. So 1 is that they pretend to read out loud. This is typically around the age 2. You see this a lot, especially when a child is exposed to literacy in the home. They'll begin to imitate. And so what they'll do is they'll take a book. Actually, I want to take this book because this was the book that my daughter had down pat, baby. This is Goodnight Moon. But they'll take a book, right? And what they'll do is they'll try to mimic what you do. So they'll take the book and they'll just start pretending. Goodnight Moon. The cow jumped over the moon. and the bears sat in their chairs. And they're like really looking at the picture and remembering what you said to them. Okay. And so they begin to like mock you. All right. So that is a pre reading behavior. In this, you want to make sure that they're holding the book correctly. You'll see this a lot of times in kids, they'll start doing this, the book's upside down. And they're still saying, and the cow jumped over the moon. Right? Because they're so used to you saying that. And so if they're holding the book correctly like this, that means hey, they're getting ready to read, right? They're getting ready to understand stand print. The next thing you want to look for when it comes to pre-reading behavior is that they're turning the pages from left to right. Now, if they're holding the book correctly, this part should be like smooth sailing for them. Okay. If they're holding the book correctly, there's only one choice. Well, there's the backwards choice. So if they're started in the back and they're going like this, that means they're a little off. And so you're going to have to kind of teach them, no, you start at the beginning, and then kind of how to turn the pages. And then you also know if they're ready, if they can recognize the words on the page that they have meaning. So, for example, I did an example of the cow jumping over the moon. And although they were looking at the picture and remembering what you said, what they're kind of doing is recognizing that these words correlate with the picture. Another thing you can do is as you're reading, you are actually following along with your finger. This will also help them understand that the words that are coming out of your mouth are right here in this print, and that kind of exposes them to print. Okay. And so you can support this once again, modeling, read aloud daily. Let them read familiar stories back to you, of course, at the beginning. And I'm only talking about ages like 2 to 3 now. If they're 3 to 4, they should be past this. But that just kind of helps build their confidence if they can read a familiar book to you. And we're going to talk about this in 2 days. I'm going to go over guessing because you can't stay in this phase too long either. And then you want to ask things like, where's the title? Boom. Can you turn the page? So even if you're reading, getting them to turn the page for you will help model, how to turn a page and so forth. All right, so these are our pre-reading behaviors. Whoop, whoop. Let me know, do you see these in your child? This will show you that your child is ready to read. The next thing is if they show interest in books and words. In books and words. So before a child is ready to read, they have to correlate what is called print. That's pretty much letters on everything, like a stop sign. When you go out to eat, the menu, look, my shirt has print. And you're wanting them to recognize and identify that the same letters, right, the same print that they read in a book is everywhere around them. This is what we call a print rich environment. I also have some videos on my channel about that as well and how you can create a print rich environment. And in that, you want to actually, I'm going to drop, I actually have some print rich labels that I have over my entire house that has things like door, oven, microwave that I have on my as one of my digital products. So I may drop that down below as well so that y'all can have those. Are y'all enjoying this? Y'all let me know right now. Like, are y'all getting fed? I always want to make sure that I'm giving you guys what y'all need. All right, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. All right, so for those of you guys that want that print rich environment around your home or your classroom, here are some labels that will allow that to happen. All right, so these particular labels allow you to print them out laminate them, stick them everywhere. Okay. Like I said, I have mine on my fireplace, microwave, all in the kitchen, everywhere in the kitchen. But that will just kind of help this part that they correlate, right? The words and letters around them, that they have meaning. Okay. You also want to see if they're showing an interest by bringing books to you. Do they always ask for you to read, or is it always you that initiates reading? If they are asking what words say, so because they don't know how to read, so if they point and say, mommy, what's this, and you're like, good night, moon, or if they just point, if they're used to you pointing, they'll probably just point, right? And then you could say good night, moon, or they'll point to the stop sign and you can say stop. But these are the things that you need to make sure that you are constantly implementing, and modeling, so that they can then start picking up on these kind of behaviors. Another thing you want to see, if they're showing interest in books and words, is if they start noticing, like, really print anywhere, packages, signs. I already talked about signs, but like packages, menus. If you're going out, like going out to eat, if you're in the classroom, like seeing the print in the hallway. But you're just wanting to see if they're making that connection. All right, number 3. You'll know if a child is getting ready to read if they can follow directions and pay attention. Now, I'm not saying that a kid has to sit down crisscross applesauce all the time. Okay. I'm not saying that whatsoever. So do not misquote me. Okay. Understand that children are children, right? And yes, we want to do things like read aloud daily and talk about pictures and words. We want to do things like I spy, that kind of could help them pay attention to the words around them in a print rich environment. You want to do things like make books accessible. I talk about that in my print rich environment book video, about how you want to make sure that books are at their level so that they can actually freely go and grab them. But you also want to make sure that they can sit down for at least 5 to 10 minutes. So when it comes to reading, and I am a huge fan of, they don't have to be sitting the way you want them to sit. Okay. Like I remember when my daughter was like 3 and she was beginning to learn how to read, she would be reading and she's doing all of this and moving, and you see legs going on in the air, but yet she was paying attention and can quote, and so what a child's pay attention posture is can vary, right? Especially if you have a boy. Boys are naturally very active. And so getting them to sit down quietly, crisscross applesauce for 10 minutes straight might be a stretch. But can they focus and pay attention for a solid 5 to 10 minutes? That's a really good sign. And so you wanted to just make sure that they can follow directions and pay attention. You want to see if they can follow 1 to 2 step directions. So what is a 1 step direction? 1 step direction, for example, is, hey, can you go get me a cup? There's only one thing that they have to do. Go get the cup, bring it to you. Okay. A 2 step direction would be pretty much what I just asked my daughter a second ago. As you see, there's water in it. I said, hey, can you fill this up with water and bring me my cup? Okay. And so she had to go fill it up with water and then bring the cup to me. So that's two directions. If you say, hey, go pick up your shirt, or if you say, hey, go put all your dirty clothes in the hamper. That's multiple things that they have to do. So if they can follow simple 1 to 2 step directions, then they're getting closer to being ready to read. If they can pay attention for 5 to 10 minutes, they're showing you that they're ready to read. And if they can participate in story time without wandering off, this is when you are reading. Can they pay attention when you're reading? Because if they can't pay attention when you're reading, and I mean a simple book, like a book like Good Night Moon, don't go get a complicated book and then say, Asha, they didn't pay attention. It's too long. You want a book that would only take 5 to 10 minutes max to go through. But if you're reading a book, can they pay attention the entire book without trying to get up and wander off? And so If they can't, things you can do is kind of like practice short instructions during play. So like even during their playtime, just kind of give them one, like, be intentional with it, but give them kind of like a lot of one task instructions. And then when they can start following that, then amp it up to two task instructions. Another thing you can also do when it comes to sitting down quietly is for you to start a timer. Okay. Maybe 5 to 10 minutes is a stretch for your child. Okay, let's start with 3. Okay. And you're not letting them know you're timing them, because if they do that, then it's a challenge. You are timing them without them knowing. You're just kind of changing your goal. When they can get to 3 minutes on their own, all right, now you're just, okay, let me go to 4. Let me go to 5. Let me go to 6, all the way until they can get to 10. Okay. Once they can go to 10 minutes, just focusing without wandering off, they're showing you, okay, now I'm getting ready to learn how to read. Other things you can do to kind of promote this is to play Simon Says. Okay. Playing Simon Says allows them to do a lot of one task instructions and makes them focus. Simon Says, touch your nose. They think you're playing a game, but they're focusing on what you're saying and they're following instructions. Simon Says, touch your head. Okay. Now touch your elbows. Now they're also paying attention to see, obedience wise. But Simon Says kind of helps with both. Okay. So you have, I'm giving y'all games, right? You have I Spy that helps you with print rich environment. So you can say, like, I spy the word stop. Even though they can't read the word stop, if they know that the sign is a stop sign, hopefully they can correspond that is the word stop. You may have to help them with that just a little bit, but those kind of games will help them pay attention to the environment. And then a game like Simon Says will help them with their attention span and following 1 and 2 step direction. All right, so the next thing you want to look at to see if your child is ready to read is, do they have basic fine motor control? So gross motor, and I have some videos on this, gross motor skills are like the big muscles in your body, like running, tossing, jumping. Those are like all those big muscles. Fine motor skills are your small muscles in your hands. Why is this important? Because they need to be able to write. Reading and writing go hand in hand, especially when it comes to brain development and so forth. And so, in order for a child to hold a pencil, there are certain muscles in their hands that have to be developed before they are ready to actually begin to write. So, this is when you have like tracing and drawing pictures, and those kind of things will begin to help them develop these muscles. So if they're ready to read, if they can hold a crayon, if they can hold a pencil correctly. I'm not talking about like this or this. Can they hold it correctly? If they can do tracing or copying shapes, not letters, shapes. You're gonna start with the big stuff. If they can turn pages in a book, or if they can use scissors. Now, scissors, that's a real tell sign, right? If they can cut with scissors, then baby, they got it, right? They have it if they can cut with scissors. So you can support this by offering coloring and tracing and Play-Doh activities. I have a ton. Using things like chunky pencils. Y'all know, like the big pencils with the big old grips, that helps. Practicing writing letters with fingers and sand or shaving cream. I would say don't start off with letters. Start off with things like shapes, like circle. Really start off with a circle. Start off with a circle. And then maybe you can advance it to like a square or so forth. But you want to start off with shapes. Okay. All right. I want to do a check-in. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up button if you are getting value out of this. I'm just super excited to be on here and to be able to pour out some knowledge with y'all on this good Monday morning. All right, the last thing that you want to look at to see if your child is ready to read is, can they identify and play with beginning sounds and letters? Now, if you notice, everything I've said thus far has nothing to do with the letters of the alphabet, right? We have talked about pre-reading strategies like holding a book, correctly. We've talked about things like fine motor skills. We've talked about things like print rich environment. All of this is the foundation. Are they ready to read? It's almost like you know how before you even go build on a lot, you have to see if this is a good lot to build on, right? You have to kind of check the soil before you really even put the post up for the foundation. So, like these kind of things are you checking the soil to make sure that you're not building on a sinkhole or that you're building on the type of soil that's sustainable for you to sit here and put your concrete on. And that's kind of what you're doing in this phase. But yet, the last sign is when you're finally getting into some of those foundational skills that we all jump to thinking is number one, and it actually is not. So, you want to make sure that you have a child that can identify and play with beginning sounds and letters. So, when I say beginning sounds, typically I always teach my clients that you want to go at least the first letter a child give should learn is the first letter of their name. You want to give them their letter. That's how I always say it. Give them their letter. So, for example, my name is Aja. So the letter A would be the first letter that I make sure I expose myself to. Okay. My daughter, her name is Kendall. First letter she knew was K. She knew it at 2 years old, how to say K, how to identify K. The K make the sound in her name, Kendall. Like you want to make sure that you're giving them their letter, right? That's the beginning letter of their name. That's the word that they are most familiar with at this age. And so you want to make sure that they're at least familiar with that. Another way you know if a child is ready to read, if they can identify not only just the first letter of their name, but a few letters, right? And typically those first few letters will be the letters in their name. Or if they're in pre-K, it'll be the first letter in their classmate's name. So for example, my daughter, her name is Kendall. She had a little girl in her class named Braylon. She would come home and say, Braylon's name starts with the letter B. Perfect. You're learning these things. So if they can name a few other letters and even a few other sounds, like, hey, that's B. It says B. That will help as well for you to know if they're ready. If they can recognize beginning words in familiar words, like I said, their names or your name. And if they can play with rhymes or beginning sounds like cat, bat, hat, dog. Which one didn't belong? And so these are actually did a whole nother video of phonemic awareness. That's what it's called, dealing with sounds. But I did an activity of ways you can practice phonemic awareness even in the car. Okay. And so you can begin to build a child's awareness with letters and sounds without them ever having to look at letters and sounds. Okay, that's all verbal, straight verbal. So things you can do is literally ask them a lot of questions like cat. What's the first sound you hear in cat? And you're gonna have to keep modeling for this for them. They'll get used to it, and then they'll be able to rise to that occasion. You want to do things like sing the alphabet with songs. Start singing the alphabet, sorting pictures by beginning sounds. You can use letter magnets for them to connect things like the letter B with ball and these kind of things. Okay. So these are the things that you can do in order for them to begin to identify what with letters and sounds and begin to play with that. Okay. Notice I never said they had to learn all their letters and sounds to know how to read. No, because you start reading at the sounds foundation. Okay. That is phase one. Okay. And so this is what you need to do in order to know that they're ready for you to do phase one. Are they ready for you to actually teach them the alphabet? In order for you to teach them the alphabet, these are the things that you need to make sure that they have in place. Okay. It will be really hard to start teaching them the alphabet if they don't even understand that this is print, if they don't even understand that these are words. If they have no recollection of how these things work, it is going to be really hard for them to begin to associate letters and the world around them. So you want to start with them understanding the world around them and then piggyback on that information by teaching them letters and teaching them sounds. And so that's the correlation between the two. So if you have a child, right, that can um exemplify how to hold a book, right, how to turn the pages from left to right, all of those pre-reading behaviors that we began to talk about earlier. If you have a child that does all of that, they're showing you interest in books and interest in print, they're seeing the signs, they're asking you to read, if they can pay attention and follow directions for up to 10 minutes, if they can hold, they might not be able to hold a pencil that's this small, but if they can hold like a big marker, for example, even if they're not holding it all the way correct, when they're holding it like this, they're at least trying, right? This is kind of like a good starter position that you kind of see kids do. But if they're still like this, maybe you got to teach them. Okay. If they're doing it like this, they don't have it. Okay. You typically see kids start with this and then they kind of go to this, right? Then eventually they go to this. All right, so that's kind of the progression. And so you want to make sure that they can hold at least a marker correctly. If they're showing you early letter sound knowledge, like the first letter in their name, then you know that this baby is ready for you to begin to teach them how to read. And so you want to start at the sounds and letters phase. Okay, so you might be wondering, okay, so what's next? If they're ready, let's go. What do I do next? The next thing you want to do is come to my workshop. Dun, dun, dun. This Thursday, I'm actually hosting a workshop called My 3 Secrets to Teaching Reading with Ease. And I want to teach you and help you build your confident reader with this next step. So for those of you guys that are watching live or watching the replay, in the comment box and also the description, you will see how to sign up for this free workshop. It is completely free. It's an hour and a half where we dive into the next steps. I'm going to be showing you. Oh, I think I have a slide for that. Hold on. There we go. I'm going to be showing you the top mistakes that keep children stagnant when it comes to reading and what you should do instead. I'm going to show you my proven system that allows children to master essential literacy skills. And then I'm going to walk you step by step of how you can fast track your reading growth without any stress or without experiencing burnout. And so I cannot wait to see you at this workshop. I'm actually hosting this workshop virtual and in person. There are 2 virtual options. On Thursday, we have it at 12 p.m. and 7 p.m. In addition to that, I'm hosting the same workshop in a more interactive way on Saturday. If you live in the Atlanta area, it will be at Wolf Creek Library on Saturday, June 14th from 11 to 1. So you have multiple options. For those in the Atlanta area, we're gathering in person. For those across the world, we have a virtual option. So make sure that you save your spot at this workshop. Okay. And then also join me again tomorrow and Wednesday, gearing up for that workshop. I want to make sure that you do have everything you know prior to understanding the step-by-step system. I want to make sure that you're getting everything. So in this video, we began to talk about, okay, when do you know a child's ready to read? What are those 5 signs that you shouldn't ignore? Tomorrow, join me again as we begin to talk about the truth about letter sounds, why teaching the alphabet isn't enough, why you actually need more than just teaching A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then join me again on Wednesday as we dive into why guessing words does not actually mean your child can read. That will be on June 11th at 12 p.m. And then, of course, once again, on Thursday will be the big workshop. This will be a private workshop on Zoom. I know I have done workshops before where it's here on YouTube, but for this one, it will only be on Zoom. So you must sign up for the 3 Secrets to Teaching Reading with Ease workshop. We used to do it on Zoom. I used to do like workshops on Zoom, and it's just a lot more intimate. I feel like I can be able to talk and relate to you guys way better on Zoom than on YouTube. So we're going to meet on Zoom. That means you have to sign up to get the Zoom information. So make sure you sign up for that. All right. So we have a packed week coming up. I hope to see you again tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as we dive back into this once again. And then, of course, make sure you register for the 3 Secrets to Teaching Reading with Ease workshop. And I will see you very, very soon.